Hello BookTube. This is the second shelf of my headboard bookcase, I guess you can call it. First up I have two James Bond novels by Ian Fleming, Dr. No and Thunderball. These were bought along with a same edition of Diamonds Are Forever from the Friends of the Library book sale nook at the Westwaco Library for 25 cents each. Since I bought the James Bond anthology that includes Diamonds Are Forever, I think I either redonated it back to the Friends of the Library book sale or I traded it in for credit at Golden's Book Exchange. Because as far as I know, they have no James Bond. Also, a book I picked up from the Friends of the Library book sale nook is this edition of My Son's Story by Nadine Gordimer. This is a discarded library book from the Westwaco, well, what is now I think the Westwaco Library, but at the time it was the Lake Air branch. The Westwaco Libraries, I think, had 3 iterations. I had an edition of My Son's Story a few years ago, along with Jump and Other Stories that I never read and eventually just discarded. I had previously bought in high school Nadine Gordimer's novel, The House Gun, which I quite liked, but I don't think I've ever quite gotten on with anything else by Nadine Gordimer. In 2017, I tried to read Burger's Daughter like 3 times, and while I finally finished the book, I never got on with it. So, definitely, I'm quite disappointed with my how things turned out with Gordimer. Well Belongs to You by Garth Greenwell. I picked this up through Amazon. This was all the rage among booktubers a year or 2 ago. I didn't care for it. It's about an American teacher who gets involved with a male prostitute in Sofia, Bulgaria, and I'm assuming the American teacher becomes obsessed, as is tradition for in these kinds of stories. Like, there's always sort of this romantic obsession. Dream Boys by Jim Grimsley. I picked this up in high school, read it in high school. I haven't read it since, but I really, really enjoyed it. Also by Jim Grimsley is Boulevard. I picked this up a few years later from Book People in Austin. Never read it. I really, really should rectify that. Life Drawing by Michael Grumley. I don't remember if this was a recommendation of Steve Donahue's or Sean the Book Maniac. I think this was Steve Donahue and Cody was Sean the Book Maniac. I personally didn't care for it. Got it through Better World Books for like $1.99 or 99 cents or something. Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. Picked this up in high school. Rather enjoyed it when I finally read it, although it is quite heartbreaking, as much of the gay literature of the period was. These. I'm making mini little piles over here so I can put them back on the shelves because I took them off the shelves and laid them on my bed. Oh, and I did those a bit in order. Gutter Boys, a novel by Alvin Orloff. This is, I picked a gay novel set in the late 70s or early 80s, punk scene. And again, kind of the main protagonist getting a little too caught up in the scene, much to his detriment. I read it a few years ago. I bought it from a different Life Books in San Francisco. And I can't say I cared for it, but I do want to give it another go before I decide whether or not I want to get rid of it. Into by North Morgan. This book came out last year. It's about a 30-something gay man struggling with life in the early 21st century. And I was disappointed when I read it, but I do want to go back through it and see if I was expecting a different book, and I'm taking that expectation and the disappointment about not getting what I wanted out on the book. So, which when I eventually talk about Katie Edwards' The Last Son, is something I'm definitely wanting to talk about, my own reaction to. But moving on, Forbidden Acts by Ben Hodges. This is an anthology of several gay and lesbian plays in the 20th century, including God of Vengeance by Shalom Ash, Captive by Edward Bourdet, The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman, Oscar Wilde by Leslie and Sewell Stokes, The Immoralist by Ruth and Augustus Goetz, The Killing of Sister George by Frank Marcus, The Boys in the Band by Mark Crowley, Bent by Martin Sherman, which I saw a presentation of Bent in 2005 in Austin. It was quite good. As Is by William Hoffman, Love, Valor, Compassion by Terrence McNally, which I've seen the film version. I don't remember if it was on TCM or Bravo, when Bravo had during the month of June a lot of gay film and documentaries, which now they pretty much just have Desperate Housewives of Insert City here. I'm not bitter about that, but I'm bitter about that. At Swim Two Boys by Jamie O'Neill. I picked this up I probably picked this up at a San Francisco State University had at the time a used book room, where basically like a used bookstore in what used to be like an office or a classroom in one of the buildings. So, never actually read this. I really, really need to. Okay, now I'm thinking we're getting to the Hollinghursts. So, I have 5 of the 6 novels that Ellen Hollinghurst has written. The first one I ever bought is The Spell. Picked this up in high school from Barnes & Noble. I bailed when I first read it, and then eventually, a few years later, I reread it and actually rather liked it. It's about a 30-something gay man who comes into his own through rather destructive relationships between a father and his 20-something, or late teen, early 20-something son. The next Hollinghurst novel I bought was his Man Booker winning The Line of Beauty. I don't remember where I picked this up from. It was either a different night bookstore in San Francisco, or I want to say it was Book People, but it doesn't have the Book People stamp on it, Although I don't know if they stamp books that are like ordered online. I don't remember. But anyway, I've never actually read this. I know it's set in the 80s and involves the main character dancing with Margaret Thatcher. So the next Hollinghurst novel I picked up in his first novel, his debut, The Swimming Pool Library. I picked this up at a used bookstore. I want to say somewhere near Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. I was part of a graduate English major or grad English student group, and we were having a meet and greet at a bar, and I think I ended up getting lost, found a used bookstore, went in and picked this up. I read it a few years ago. I actually rather liked it, although it is kind of heartbreaking and, for me, frustrating. It's about a young gay man who learns about gay history from this much older gay man who ultimately betrays not only him, but one of his friends, who the main character, I think, has, if I remember correctly, has a sort of romantic attachment to him. The next Hollinghurst I bought around the same time, and I definitely want to say this was from a different light bookstore, is The Folding Star. This is about a young, 30-something gay man moving to a Belgian city and, I guess, experiencing life. I think I tried to read it a few years ago, and I think I bailed, but I'm tempted to next year to try to read all of Hollinghurst's novels during the first 6 months of the year. But but I think I wanted to try that last year, and it didn't quite work. I gave it up in favor of reading all of the Miss Marple novels, which was infinitely enjoyable. And then finally we have The Stranger's Child, which I picked up from Better World Books and haven't gotten around to it. Sorry about that. Somebody must be talking about me. My nose is itching. Okay. Mysterious Skin by Scott Heim. I picked this up in high school and read it in high school. Really enjoyed it, although it is quite heartbreaking. I had his second novel a few years ago, and sorry about that, and never read it and eventually unhauled it. But I really do need to give him another go. It's been years since I've read Mysterious Skin. John Webster's The Duchess of Malfi and Other Plays, including The White Devil, The Devil's Law Case, and A Cure for a Cuckold. I picked this up for, I want to say, a Renaissance lit class, because we read The Duchess of Malfi and The White Devil. And I actually rather enjoyed both of those. The White Devil more than The Duchess of Malfi. Next we have a collection of Kawabata novels. Yasunori Kawabata. The first Kawabata novel I ever picked up is Thousand Cranes. I picked it up in high school, probably about the time I picked up Acts of Worship. Read it, really enjoyed it. It's about a young Japanese man who struggles to understand himself and his father through his father's relationships with two women, and then his own relationship with those two women, plus one of the women's daughter. Quite good. I actually wrote an essay on this for an intro to Japanese culture class. that I took during the summer of 2005. And the professor of that class offered to give me some duplicate Kawabata novels he had. So those novels were The Master of Go, which I love. It's about a famous Go game in the mid to late 30s, featuring an aging master near retirement age, or I think it's actually his death, and a younger challenger. The Sound of the Mountain, which is really good. Beauty and Sadness. The House of the Sleeping Beauties. And The Old Capital, which again was really good. The London Novels of Colin MacInnes. I got this mostly because I have a weird obsession with absolute beginners. It was adapted in the mid-80s as a musical starring David Bowie that I actually quite enjoy. Really love the song Absolute Beginners, by the way. And I've been meaning to and bailing on Absolute Beginners ever since. I'd originally interlibrary loaned this, and eventually once I figured out I discovered in Libris, I bought this. Or I might have bought this from Amazon's used book store. John le Carré's The Night Manager. I picked this up from the Friends of the Library used book sale nook. I'm meaning to read it for a while. I mean, obviously it's recently been adapted into a more modernized film starring Tom Hiddleston. Christopher Marlowe's The Complete Plays, which I picked up. I want to say it was either at the used book sale room at San Francisco State University, or there was the grad students, an English group were putting on a book sale, and this was one of the books up for sale, which is now falling apart. Although it was falling apart when I first bought it, so it includes, if I can find it without it falling apart on me, Dido, Queen of Carthage, the first part of Tamburlaine the Great, the second part of Tamburlaine the Great, The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus, which is quite good. I don't remember if I read it for English Lit 1 or the Renaissance Lit class. The Jew of Malta, Edward II, which was a very interesting adaptation by Derek Jarman in the early 90s, starring Tilda Swinton as Queen Isabella, and The Massacre at Paris. Returning to Jean le Carré, I have an omnibus edition of Smiley vs. Carla, including Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Honorable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People. I have no idea why there's a glare there, but oh, there it is. So I've read bits of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and I obviously watched the film adaptation from a few years ago starring Gary Oldman, and quite enjoyed it. And we have A Lady of the Flowers by Jean Genet. Picked this up through Hastings online. Never actually quite gotten around to reading it, which I really need to correct. The Forsyte Saga by John Galsworthy. I read the first book in the series from my local library, and then I think when I wanted to return to the sequels, the library had discarded or withdrawn the book, so I had to hunt for it and eventually found this collected edition at Golden's Book Exchange. And we have the behemoth of the Headboard bookshelf, The Complete Works of William Shakespeare, edited by David Bevington. I picked this up for a Shakespeare class, and I think whenever I had like a Renaissance lit class that featured Shakespeare, I used this edition because obviously it's got everything. Now, for those viewers who are of delicate sensibilities, in the video now, and if you want to continue, do continue. I have 4 books of what can only be described as gay porn. Yeah, maybe you can argue it's erotica, but it's gay porn. So first of all, there is Boy Kim by Sam Stevens, which I picked up in high school. Yeah, obviously, I mean, I picked up a lot of gay novels in high school to really sort of try, I guess, maybe to find my place in the gay community and really hunger for gay literature and gay stories. This is basically Big Brother with a much more condensed cast that really sort of, it's okay. I mean, obviously certain bits of it are better than others, but the ending is, I thought, rather crap. I mean, the ending is crap. I've never gotten around to Boy Band. I picked this up a few years ago, maybe it's like a year ago, from Better World Books. And I know it's about boy bands, but I'm not entirely, I've never actually gotten around to reading it. And then we have Bride by Ken Smith. This is about a farm boy who becomes a sailor and male prostitute. Ken Smith has an obsession with sailors turned male prostitutes. Anyway, the first parts of the novel are certainly a lot better than the sailor part, but again, there's not much of a plot here, which is kind of disappointing, and the characterizations are horrific. Yeah, there is something wrong with Brad. Just really something. Yeah, and then we have finally The Moonsteep Circle by David Hawley. This is sort of a dual narrative of a young 18-year-old discovering his brothers and something in his brothers' lives, and kind of in discovering his older brother's homosexuality, discovering his own, and being awakened to having sex with men. The older brother and the middle brother basically joined this sort of pagan, like a pagan revival cult that sort of incorporates gay sex, gay orgies in their rituals. And then the younger brother kind of getting off on it, and then sort of using his older brother's stuff to form his own sexuality, and having relations with two of his friends. It's a mess. Honestly, the book should have been one of two stories. I mean, either really the older brother sort of, life in this religious group, cult, or the younger brother coming into his own. Like one of the two. Together, it doesn't quite work. And obviously, the religion, the pagan revival, or however you call it, is laughably bad. Just laughably bad. And how exactly the oldest brother becomes a professor of religion is eye-rolling, like, what the hell? But I guess with those 4 novels, a good plot and good characterization isn't necessarily what's the main point on the agenda. Anyway, so that concludes the second shelf of my headboard. So next up, I think I'm going to film my history shelves and then debate with myself how I'm going to film the science fiction and fantasy shelves, because that will probably take me all of quite a while. I might start. I think I'm gonna start it after NaNoWriMo is over. Even though when I film, I'm not writing. I film sort of midday, so I don't know. And I'm thinking I'm going to basically do it shelf at a time, which argues against filming it all at once when I'm reorganizing the shelves. So I don't know. I need to think about that. Although, I mean, it would be something to round out the year, so I might hold off on that until the start of December. I'll let you know. Do let no, because I switched the lighting. So I'm going to try to let me know how you like the lighting, because some videos I film using a lamp on my headboard, and some I film using the light of my ceiling fan. So I'm kind of noticing there's a bit of a shadow going on. So I kind of want to know how you're taking it, like how well you can see the video, and if you want me, if I maybe should add a second light bulb to the ceiling fan, because right now I just have the one. So anyway, let me know down in the comments, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Or I'll do a NaNoWriMo begin video tomorrow, I think. So talk to you soon, BookTube. Bye.